Welcome to the Princeton Podcast, where we talk about upcoming events, news, and local businesses. This is Princeton. Play here, stay here.
Before we get started today, just a reminder to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're also recording on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe at This is Princeton MN.
Welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by Princeton Public Schools. I'm Zach Kitzman. We're here with Mary Patnode and Kim Young.
I wanted to mention here before we got going that Charlie Moe was the writer of our intro and outro song. So if you haven't listened to that all the way through the end, we do mention that he is the author of that song. So make sure that you listen to that and let Charlie know that we love it because it's awesome. Thank you, Charlie.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have troubles driving here this morning or the roads being slick?
I got a little bit scared on 169 because I was thinking yesterday is in the 40s, so you can just kind of cruise. And then I'm driving down 169 going exactly the speed limit, 65 miles an hour. Hint for our guest today. And I just got a gust of wind, and then I looked at the temperature, and it was 20-something. I was like, oh, crap.
Right.
I'm going to slide right off this road.
Yeah, we had a lot of rain last night. Mm-hmm. For everyone listening, when we record this, it was actually raining. Because it'll be like, what, a week?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a week ago, the weather was not very nice. But what do we have for events coming up, Kim?
Well,
Sorry.
on Saturday, February 25th, we have New Life Church is hosting a very large event. It's called Kids XP, and they have different locations, I believe. I know that the middle school is housing all the inflatables and the jumping castles, so that sounds like a lot of fun. You can check out that at New Life Church's website if you want more information. That same day, on Saturday, Princeton High School is hosting a speech meet, and the speech team has been doing very well this year, so be sure and check that out. And then Sunday is the Gerald Bozer Memorial Ice Fishing Contest on Green Lake, and that will go on from 1 to 4 p.m. Last podcast, we had Scott Leisman on to talk about all the details of that fishing tournament. So you can go back and listen to the very beginning of that podcast to get more information, or you can check out their website or Facebook for more information, because I'm sure they have some updated information about the lake conditions and that. So that's what we've got going on.
Kim, what can people do if they have an event coming up and they want to share it with us?
You can visit our website at thisisprincetonmn.co with no M. And right on the homepage, you can scroll down to the bottom, and there's a place where you can submit your event. And we can then get it on our website and on the podcast.
Yeah, we'll have a link below in either our YouTube description or somewhere below in the comments where we'll link our website and get you going.
Perfect.
All right. I am so excited about our guest today. We have Todd Frederick here from the Princeton Police Department. Todd was appointed by the Princeton City Council as Princeton's Chief of Police back in August of 2014, and he began working in that position that October. He had been an investigator with the department since 2008, and we will learn more about him. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you.
All the audience there was clapping, so jumped on them there.
Yeah, we've got a big crowd today.
Yeah, to hear it again.
You knew more information than I did. Wow, where'd you find that stuff
Well,
from?
Kim Googled you, and luckily, it was very hard to find any dirt on you.
That's good.
That was all that was out there.
I was able to delete all that stuff. That's good.
Well, that was one of our questions. How do we get our stuff deleted?
I'm not sure. I got to figure out how I did it.
Oh, all right. I'll start off here. Todd, tell us a little bit about yourself. What made you want to go into the law enforcement?
Well, dating back to I think I was in high school, and we had a bunch of us, my friends. We had 2 or 3 people that had dads that were police officers, deputies in the metro area. So, I think by junior, senior year, maybe I kind of thought, no, this is a possibility. I went down a very quick track of thinking I was going to be a architectural draftsman of sorts, and believe it or not, that math is extremely important in that subject. And so struggled there a little bit, and then I changed the field and went into law enforcement, and that's kind of how it all started. So I was thinking about it this morning. I think I have 7 friends that we grew up together that are all police officers somewhere in the state of Minnesota.
Oh, that's cool. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Bloomington, so I was a Jefferson Jaguar. So there was a number of fathers that were police officers. So I feel like that kind of kept us on the straight path of not getting into trouble, because we were fearful of us guys getting into trouble with dads that were officers somewhere in the area. So,
Yeah, because that's a little bit bigger city than Princeton, where I tell my kids, I will find out.
oh yeah,
About-
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
mean, someone will see you, and that's someone that knows me, and I'll find out.
Yeah,
Always.
we always call that the mom call, right? The mom sometimes knew before the kids would even get home and tell moms, which is always mind blowing for us at home. But even now in Princeton, I tell my kids that, like, you better get to us before we get to the neighbors.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to do a little bit of myth busting today. So I'm going to start off with our first myth buster, or maybe. Do officers have quotas for tickets or arrests? Because I know you see, like, on social media, or, people talking about just getting a ticket, and then people will comment and say, oh, it's the end of the month, they got to give out their tickets.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that you're right, we still hear that, but no, we do not have any quotas. We do not have any, like, I don't send any directive down saying you need to have 12 more citations within the next hour. There's that doesn't happen in Minnesota. I can't tell you about other states. I don't believe so, but there are state statutes out there that point towards having no quotas. It's just more of a, if we see it, then obviously a traffic stop occurs, but no, there are no quotas for arrest or tickets.
Do people, when you pull them over, still talk about it? Like, oh, you must need to get your quota?
We get the occasional ornery, irritated individual that, if it falls within that last month period time frame, will say, oh, you're just trying to get your quota. But I can reassure everybody that there's no quotas or anything like that when it comes to tickets or arrests.
Did that used to be a thing? I mean, where did that come from?
We tried to do a little bit of I think it was a thing, but we're talking probably 45 years ago, that I think that there was, whether it was an actual, like, there was a number to it, or maybe it was just like a directive from administration, hey, we need to be more, do more enforcement here or there. I think that's kind of how that whole thing started. So, I mean, we still have targeted areas, right? If I get complaints regarding speeding in a certain area of town, those informational messages go out to the officers, and it doesn't say, like, go issue tickets, but it just says, presence or traffic stops, and it comes down to officer discretion in regards to what those traffic stops or arrests look like.
Okay.
Speaking of that, you guys did a nice job with over by the intermediate school with putting police presence and the crosswalk sign, because that gets people are late to pick up their kids or late to drop their kids off to school, and they're flying through that crosswalk pretty quickly. And I know that there's some young kids that go to school by themselves, and you guys responded to that so nicely.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, no, we've been, there was some neighbors, some area people that have, that walk their kids to the school area there, and it's just so busy. There's so much traffic there. And so I know our city is working with the county right now to look at some traffic type road designs, and so forth, to make sure that we can try to, you look at that intersection specifically. We have that campus mentality for the school, right? There's 3 schools up there, so there's a lot of foot traffic. It only gets worse as it gets warmer out too. And so with our digital sign, just trying to alert people to the fact that there's a crosswalk coming. But yeah, I think you said it perfectly. The people are always in a rush to, I got to get to work, or I got to get to a meeting. I'm going to drop my kids off. And there's so many things going on there with the traffic and bus traffic and kids walking and people trying to figure out where they're going to have to line up to get into the school and so forth, that we're just trying to really slow everybody down and remind them that, hey, we got a crosswalk here that we gotta watch out for. So I think it's working. We've had some traffic stops up there. There have been some citations given out. People weren't happy, but unfortunately, sometimes that's the only way we can get our message across. So yeah, I think it's going better. We still have a little bit of work up there, but yeah, we'll keep working at it.
So this leads me to a question about crosswalks. So is it, if you're standing in a crosswalk, you can just go, right? The pedestrian has the right of way. Yes, I mean,
Technically not.
well, some people say, like, oh,
So
I
it's
hope I
funny
get
that
hit in the crosswalk and not die, but then it'll be a big lawsuit.
Yeah, and so the message that that I know myself and other chiefs have tried to give out to other communities is I think we've gotten to the point now where people think there's like this invisible barrier in a crosswalk and that they're going to be protected. And what we try to tell people is that when you approach a crosswalk, you still got to be able to make eye contact with that vehicle and give them time to stop. Number one, I mean, there's a gray area, right? Giving them time to stop and the ones that just are going to go, right? That's a violation. But it kind of is a 50-50 thing. We need drivers to pay attention and to understand that there's an intersection of approaching or there's a crosswalk and stuff like that. But we also need the pedestrian to have a little bit of pause before they just dart out into the crosswalk, because as we talk about Rum River Drive or First Street, there's just tons of commotion. There's businesses, there's signs, there's people waving to people, there's traffic going by, and everybody's a little preoccupied. And so we always try to tell people, if you're going to cross, try to make sure you have that appropriate eye contact so you know that they're stopping. Obviously, if they don't stop, we would love to know about it. We'd like to have those vehicle descriptions and license plates and call in, because those are definitely conversations we want to have with those drivers. But so it's a little bit of both. I mean, it's not. We've had many conversations. You look at like some of the engineers within other cities. They've even had conversations about talking about removing the striped crosswalk lines on roads, because people just think that that's like this magical barrier. Mm-hmm. And so we're trying to figure out a way to make sure that pedestrians know there's a little bit of responsibility from them, and there's also a responsibility from the driver. So it's kind of both. Yeah,
that's good to know, because I think the cultures are different in, different cities. Because the reason I think about it is when I went to Mankato, on campus, you don't look, you just go. And then you come back to, a small town or a different city, and you're thinking, you see that crosswalk, and you're just like, oh,
I have the right of way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even, we talk to kids, our school officers do a nice job with the kids, talking to them about, we don't want people riding their bikes through the crosswalks. We want them to get off their bike and walk their bike across the crosswalks, kids or even adults. And the reason for that is because if for some reason somebody doesn't stop, it's being able to say, okay, I'm leaving the bike and I'm going to get back, right, to get out of the way of the vehicle. It's harder to do that when you're on a bike riding. And so those are messages that we've been giving out to the kids for quite a while about, hey, when you approach a crosswalk, let's get off our bike, let's walk, let's make that eye contact and stuff like that. So it's a work in progress. We have a lot of traffic here. We're a small town, but we're a busy town, which is awesome, right? We just need people to, slow down and give themselves appropriate times to get places and understand that, oh yeah, I was here yesterday, or I was here the day before. There's a crosswalk coming up. Pay attention to those things and remember that you're going to approach that again the next day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but let's see, what's another question we can ask? What should a person do when they get pulled over?
So I think, the first thing, I think it's important that we would love to have everybody pull to the right. We still get that occasionally where if there's a shoulder and let's say Highway 169, we'll get people that will pull to the left. And that's important for people to. It doesn't happen as much because we've had a law in place for quite a while. It's called the Ted Foss law. Move to your right, right, and that was based off of a trooper getting hit by a driver who was out on an accident. And I think that it's still. I think people panic a little bit, right? They see the lights behind them and they, oh my goodness, I'm going to get pulled over. I got to just move over to the left. And we would rather have you go to the right. So that's the first piece, right? Is we want you to get you to the appropriate side, the right side. As far as the traffic stop, we get this question a lot, and I think that it's just calm, be calm, be patient. You don't need to immediately start digging for your insurance card or digging for your wallet because unfortunately, for a multitude of reasons that makes us nervous. And it's just a natural reaction when you see, somebody driving a vehicle and then all of a sudden you get stopped and there's all this, we call it just commotion, right? We call this all this movement that goes on in the vehicle. And so my opinion is just calm, be calm, just allow for that officer to get up to the car and then just have a conversation, right? And wait for those instructions until the officer gives them to the person or the driver. a lot of people want to get out of the car and come back and have a conversation between the vehicles. And we don't want that. We want you to stay in your car because that's the best place for you. We don't want to be out of the car. There's just, the natural reaction to driving by lights is that you look at what's going on. And what I think people sometimes don't realize is your vehicle tends to follow where you're looking. And so what happens is that you hear about all these accidents that occur based off of an accident or emergency lights. And so for us, it's trying to get out of there as fast as possible. Like, we don't want to be on the highway or the roadway, and we try to speed things up just because it just creates a lot of slowdown, so to speak. So I think with people jumping out of the car to have those conversations, sometimes people think it's more convenient. Like, I've had a person that has said to me, well, I don't want you by the side of my car, And our response is, well, I'd rather have you in the car. That's safer with your seatbelt on, those kind of things. And then obviously there's that small percentage of confrontation, right? We need to control that piece. And so staying in your car, keeping your hands on the steering wheel, and just having a conversation with the officer, and then following those instructions. Like, you'll have an officer that'll say, can I see your driver's license and proof of insurance? We've had people that said, well, would you mind if I go to my glove box and open up to get the insurance? I mean, those are great conversations to have, right? Not that we're looking to be nervous and stressed out, but it just makes everything much more soothing, much more, we're able to communicate better. It's hard for us to hear too. Like, if we have conversations outside of the car with people and there's vehicles flying by, that's a tough conversation to have, where we can actually hear you a little bit better when you're inside your car, and the car is kind of keeping it muffled to where we can have a good conversation with you. So yeah, those are, I mean, it's just, I don't want to say it's common sense, but it's, we want, you don't need to be nervous, right? I mean, all right, is there a chance you're going to get a citation for something? Sure. But as long as those conversations are calm and we're getting business taken care of, so to speak, it'll go fast, and hopefully it ends up in a verbal warning,
What are the best excuses you've heard?
Oh boy. I kind of thought maybe you'd ask that. I have had, I've had a seatbelt one. Me personally, I've had a seatbelt one. The driver didn't have their seatbelt on. I stopped the driver for no seatbelt, and they had a stomach ache, and so they didn't have their seatbelt on for that reason. And they said they could get a doctor's note. Because they had some sort of medical thing. So I've had that
medical.
I was looking. I've heard a bunch of them. I was looking at not the miles per hour, but looking at the other. Like, we've had that, and that's a great question, because, like, I don't know what the percentage is, but I feel like there's a large percentage of people that probably know why they get stopped. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that is, but just be truthful. Like, I mean, do you know why I stopped it? Yeah, I was speeding. I was doing whatever. And, like, for me personally, that goes a long way. The ones that don't go are I wasn't speeding, or I have no idea why I was stopped. Well, you were doing 92 in a 65. I mean, it's like, what? It's that's a speed limit. So yeah, I mean, it's just, there's a crucial why in the road. And I think every officer, for the most part, starts with, do you know why you're being stopped? And that's an important question for us, because we always like to see how this conversation is going to go, and it always surprises us. There's always well, this is why, and some reasons or excuses, I should say, are somewhat kind of legit. And that's where that officer discretion comes in. I don't think we push tickets too hard within our department. I think our officers do a phenomenal job of kind of weighing everything, getting back to the squad car and, looking at the driving record and looking at all the other variables that go into it, and then saying, okay, I think that they were genuine. I think I'm going to give them a verbal warning, those kind of things, So those are all the things that we take into account. I think that now, if you were to get a verbal warning for a speed and then a week later you get a speed again, then that probably that percentage goes down a little bit as far as getting a verbal warning. So those are all things that we take into account.
But that verbal warning is recorded.
Yeah,
record,
from a
yeah,
records,
yeah.
from a records. If it's with our department, the officers can. Well, I shouldn't say our department. So our records management system is through Mille Lacs County. So if you were to have an event, we'll call it, or a traffic stop or an incident within Mille Lacs County, we'll be able to see
Okay.
all of that stuff. State Patrol has their own other records, so we don't get to sometimes see what maybe like if you were to get stopped by State Patrol the week before, we wouldn't know that.
Okay.
But those are some good questions, right? We always ask that. Have you been stopped for this before? Oh, absolutely not.
Well, no.
So
Now that I know this.
Yeah.
giving you guys all the tricks.
First of all, what county am I in?
There you go. Yep.
I have a question about this. When I was driving a couple days ago in the cities on 94, so there was an ambulance, and I think 94. This was when it was it was a 4-lane, and there was an ambulance way in the back. At what point do you have to pull over? Because I could see them, but it didn't feel like they were catching me. And then nobody was pulling over. I mean, if you see lights, should you pull over right away and just clear the road?
I think the minute that you see lights, because you really don't know what that speed piece is, and it depends on kind of what vehicle it is. If it's an ambulance or a fire truck, it's going to take maybe a little bit of while to get up to you. We always just say that when you see it, start moving over to your right. If you can't get over to your right, and there is that left shoulder, then move over to your left to allow for some sort of open lane to get that whatever, that ambulance, that police car. Police cars are going to get to you a little bit faster in that gap control, whereas ambulances and fire trucks and stuff like that maybe take a little bit of time. But we always tell people just to start trying to move over right away.
And do they have to move over completely, like stop completely, or just slow down?
I mean, in an ideal, I think it's move over and stop, but that becomes difficult in road settings, right? 94, that's tough to do,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that the farther you can get to each side onto that shoulder and start minimizing your speed is ideal for us. I mean, it makes it a little bit difficult, right, on the highway setting to come to a complete stop from 65 or 70 miles an hour, right? And then have to start back up again. There's always that traffic congestion that happens. So we kind of know that. We're just trying to we're just trying to get a clear path, right? And I'm glad you brought it up, because we also want that, if it's not a divided highway, we want that left lane traffic or that opposite direction traffic to pull over as well, because of I can't count how many times where somebody's moved over to the right and for whatever reason they come back over hard to the left, and we're, as in a squad car, we're averting that collision,
Right.
and maybe unfortunately having to take the oncoming traffic lane. So it's important to know, like on 95 is extremely important, because if we don't get that opposite direction travel pulling over as well, it creates for a little bit of a narrow space there in some of those areas where their shoulders aren't very big.
Do you like driving fast? On chases?
You know what's
That
funny?
just gives me
I
anxiety
feel like-
thinking about it.
I feel like when I've gotten older to the age of no, I mean, I don't think, I mean, I'm sure you could ask 1,000 officers and you're going to get a pretty hefty percentage of saying that they're okay with
Yeah.
it, right? It is nerve wracking.
Yeah.
There's you got to know, for our department, we have assigned squads to our officers, and it's important that we do that because, and most departments do that because you need to understand the limitations of each car. Every car is different. Every squad car is different. And so, we want to get there as fast as possible, but we also got to do it in a safe way, but we also got to get there, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't do us any good if we put a squad car up in the Tules because we were going too fast
Right.
for the road conditions. And so, a lot of it is just developing maturity on the job. I think for me, I mean, I've been an officer for a long time. I always laugh. I know you do too. But we have times where people go flying by you, right? Like you're driving on the highway and somebody goes by you at 15 miles an hour faster, right? And I'll give you the perfect example. And then you get to the Zimmerman lights and they're right there next to you.
Yeah. Like,
Right.
okay.
It really, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, there's some statistics out there that, passing somebody 7, 8, 9, 10 miles an hour is not getting you there that much faster. It's just increasing the risk of getting into an accident. And then now you're really delayed. Or let's just hypothetically say you get stopped by a police officer. Now you're really delayed.
Yep.
Right. Because now that traffic stop's going to take 7, 8, 9 minutes and that puts you behind. So, yeah.
How many deer do you guys hit around this area with your squad cars that people are
I
like?
got to find some wood so I can knock on it. We knock on wood. we haven't had any in the last year. It happens. It's frequent.
Yeah.
I mean, between the county and state patrol, everybody always asks, we have those wraps that go around the front of the bumpers that are like the bars, right? Well, that's just to push cars out of the way and pit people. It really is all about the little minor fender benders that we have occur, or deer hits. I mean, it takes away damaging the car. I mean, I can replace one of those bars much quicker and faster than replacing the whole front end of a squad car. So, but we've had a few. I mean, it happens. I mean, and now it becomes that time of the year, right, where it's getting warmer out and the deer are going to start running and stuff like that. But, I would be willing to bet for the Mille Lacs County, it's probably, maybe 7 to 12 a year, all department wise, everybody from tribal all the way down to Princeton. So
That's still a lot.
yeah, and it's not fun, right?
No.
You're going to especially when you're going to a call. Mm-hmm. Then you got to get on the radio and start a supervisor and tow truck. That always creates for laughter.
Well, were you thinking of that video that came out of, was it Isanti or? Don't know what that is.
His phone.
That was my wife calling.
Yeah, where that officer was going like 100 down 95 on a call.
Yeah.
And then that deer just
Turns into
basically blew up.
hamburger.
Yeah. It's I've had one a long time ago, and it's what do you do? I think I
scary.
had more of my personal vehicle, right? But yeah, it's especially when you're trying to get to a call.
Yeah.
I mean, it creates a problem, right? Because we want to get there, we want to help people. And, there's nothing worse than an officer having to call dispatch and say, I need somebody else to go because I'm now out.
Right.
So, yeah.
How many times have you turned your lights on to get to where you want to go? Like home for dinner?
Like, okay, so see, she's gonna right away go to like food. No, never. No, that we have, that has never happened. I can't believe, good old Mary, there's the question.
I always see them on the road. They turn their lights on, fly by, and then I see them at the gas station.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, oh, they're getting a donut and coffee.
Oh, well, see, that was the hold-up alarm at the gas station that we were going to that were canceled.
Oh.
I mean, so, believe it or not, there are quite a bit of calls that we get canceled on. So we'll get going, and we'll get en route, and then for whatever reason, the status changes to where we don't need lights or
There's a
something else.
holdup and then there's not?
Well, it's usually false alarm.
Oh,
right?
like they.
So we'll still respond.
Okay.
We actually just had one at the bank the other day. So you get the hold up alarm at the bank. Well, you start everybody goes, right. You
Right.
get Mille Lacs County, Sherburne County, ourselves, and then there's some procedural things that we go through. But more than a lot, we get that cancellation piece where they bumped it or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we have them come out to us and verify that that's not the actual case, and someone didn't tell them to say that.
But there have been some bank robberies.
We've had a couple bank robberies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's
I
crazy.
actually have
I
that
know.
in my funnest investigations to go over.
Ooh,
Yeah.
let's go to that question.
Yeah, because it was. I'm trying to remember. There was two things that happened the day with Bremer.
Wasn't it like a motorcycle and
Was there
involved?
something?
Or
Well, there was a holdup.
Yep. Because I remember worried about Dad, and then something else happened on the same day.
maybe we should let him do.
Yeah,
I don't remember the motorcycle.
I don't know if I remember. Wasn't it a construction worker?
Well, yeah. So the two bank robberies that we had that were fairly, I don't know what the time frame was, but they were fairly close together. Ironically, were both women.
Oh,
That's a
yeah.
very unusual statistic.
Wasn't me.
No, it wasn't Mary. But yes, the one at the one bank had the suspect. Remember, we had that construction program or that construction piece going on 4th Avenue.
Yep.
So there was construction workers all up and down 4th Avenue, and to her credit, she dressed like a construction worker and robbed the bank, and then kind of ejected herself into the construction working piece. But yeah.
That's
Twice,
right.
basically.
Yeah, and then we had the other female that was the other bank. Yeah, so you had Bremer, and then you had was it the one
People's?
Was it the
right?
credit union?
Was it the
People's?
one right next to
U.S. Bank?
Dairy Queen there, the old Dairy Queen?
I think it was People's at the time.
Yeah.
People's
People's,
Bank was
yeah.
yeah. So we had those two. Yeah, so
Yeah,
those
that's
were
been
those
quite a
were
while.
interesting ones. Those were there was a chain. The minute we put the information out of and both of them did a great job of dressing up and looking the part. So it was hard to get an ID, but they were separate, but they had done a multitude of bank robberies all over the place. So we had this, the FBI kind of put a task force together, and so we were lumped into that piece and started trying to figure out who it was and do surveillance. And both are in custody in different states right now.
Oh, they are.
So we ended up charging people in both situations, but in both situations, ironically, they had bigger bank robberies in different states, and so those charges were all lumped into the other states. So like one's in Wisconsin right now, and I think the other one was I want to say it was South Dakota, but I'm not positive on that.
Well, the interesting thing too is I was a bank teller for about 10 years, and I remember we went to a training one time, and it was kind of a big room at this conference, and the speaker was speaking, and then somebody walked in and kind of whispered something to the speaker, and then walked out, and then he was like, sorry about that, and then went on. And then like 10 minutes later, he was like, okay, who can remember what that person looked like that walked in here?
Yeah.
About how tall? Did he have his hood up? Did he have a hat? And I was like, I couldn't even remember what color the sweatshirt was.
Yeah.
And, and just imagine if you're in a stressful situation where you're being robbed and now you have to describe the person. I've never forgotten about that, because whenever I see descriptions of people and they can do such a good job, I think it's incredible.
Yeah, we've had, these two bank robberies that, if there was a positive thing, was obviously we caught the individuals, but the other positive was we got to go around to the other banks and talk to them about, because there is a little bit of a method to the madness of trying to ID somebody. We talk about IDing suspects, whether it's a gas station or whether it's a bank or whether it's a Walmart or whatever it is, right? It's the unfortunate thing about it is as those minutes go by, when you see somebody do something, you tend to start eliminating stuff that maybe aren't as important. So if you have a very good mindset on pants, sweatshirt, hat, from shoes all the way up, the longer it goes, the more your mind has to think about something else, so it'll start eliminating things that maybe aren't as important. And so what we've always told people is you got to be able to write it down. I mean, obviously, with our technology today, it's phone,
Right.
But I think being able to write it down allows for those conversations to occur, because obviously we're going to get there and we're going to try to make sure everybody's safe, and then start taking statements, and that takes a little bit of time. So, but yeah, it's a very hard thing to do.
Very. Yep.
That was a scary day for Princeton because the school was locked down. I think, did the hospital lock down?
Yeah, we had a number of soft lockdowns going on from the banks, because we had we had a direction of travel, but it was the construction one was completely a circus, because you get the description of they're dressed as a construction worker, and you come around the corner and here's 45 construction workers. You have no idea what you're looking for as far as besides that. And then the People's Bank one, the unfortunate piece there is she ran towards the residential. So we went through this whole process of, okay, did she knock on a door, and is she in a house, or did she go to the school, or was there a car parked somewhere, those kind of things. So you don't ever want to say, it's not going to happen in a small town, but unfortunately, if we don't prepare for it, it sometimes eventually does.
Yep.
What are some other interesting investigations?
Well,
Pullovers,
for me as an investigator, like my number one is I always refer to
We are a team, and every winning team needs a game plan. Do you know our game plan? Our game plan sets the standard for a culture of learning and support at Princeton Public Schools and within our community. Our game plan asks you to take the Princeton Tiger Pledge to own your stripes, strengths, and needs. Our game plan is not just about you or me, it is about we. And what can we do to be owners of Princeton Public Schools? Together, we lead by example. From a person's first encounter, we create a welcoming and hospitable environment. We ignite the desire to learn that exists within each and every student. We help students thrive by infusing social and emotional learning into everyday experiences and by creating opportunities for students to take ownership of their learning. How do we achieve all of this together? We foster a school climate where collaboration, communication, and positivity come naturally. A place where students feel activated, parents feel engaged, and staff feel empowered. Our community is built on trust and respect, transparency and hospitality, and is a place where families and students feel welcomed, valued, and respected from day one. Second, we focus on strengthening learning experiences that help students discover passions, build meaningful relationships, and develop problem-solving abilities to prepare them for the future. Our student-centered approach empowers them to take ownership of their learning, navigate possibilities, and design their future. Lastly, we focus on Princeton's multi-tiered system of support. We strive to understand each individual in order to provide them the support they need in the way they need it. We are a community that grows stronger when we work together. Together, our school culture, learning experiences, and system of support are designed to develop students that are successful inside and outside of the classroom, today, tomorrow, and always. It's time to show up. A better future for our students, our community, and our world starts with us. Together, we develop learners that will succeed in this ever-changing world.
Well,
Pullovers,
for me as an investigator, you know, like my number one is I always refer to it the bomb day.
I was just going to
Right.
bring that up.
Like I had to go back because now I'm dating. Like we're old. I'm old, but that was 2009.
Wow.
I feel like it just not that it just happened, but it seems it's very clear in my head as far as what that was a unforgettable day. Like I mean, in you know, they weren't bombs, right? They were lookalikes. They made them. The person did a really nice job of making them unidentifiable in regards to us using the, like, for example, Bloomington Bomb Squad. They couldn't determine whether it was or not because they had taken the precautions to hide what was inside. And so we had to detonate that stuff all right here. So
How many were there?
so for people that don't remember, there was 3 of them. So we had the high school, we had one at the post office, and then we had one at the utilities plant.
And they were all the same.
All 3 were identical, all 3 within, those reports all came in within a half an hour. People always ask me, like, so Brian Payne was the chief, I was the investigator, and we've never had to ever deal with anything like that. I mean, I always tell people that we had so many of the alphabet soup. Like you had the ATF, you had the FBI. You had every possible department that thought they were involved or needed to be there arriving. So it was managing a lot of law enforcement. I mean, we had to deal with, everybody forgets, but we had to deal with these 3 devices that we were taking as being real devices. And then as that afternoon went on, from the morning to the afternoon, remember, we had all the explosions. So we had 2 different incidents. So we had all these mini little
In the ditches or something?
all around town. We had
Yeah.
I think 8 or 9 of them. And unfortunately, that was some of our high school kids making poor decisions and making, some of those homemade little throw them out your window and they go poof, So we had, I remember in the command area with the chief and a few other people, and all of a sudden we start getting these calls coming in of a explosion here, an explosion here, and we're like, what is going on? I mean, and you know that you're on the map when you have Homeland Security calling and they're asking for, should we shut down air? Should we shut down flight services? Should we? I mean, there was a lot of things that were happening in the course of 3 or 4 hours. So
Do you remember that, Zach?
Yeah.
What grade were you in?
I was on the
Preschool?
bus going to, no. No, I think it was middle school or something like that.
So
but I
you remember getting to school?
I remember us having to stop the bus and pull over and
I think we diverted everybody once that school thing. Yeah.
we had to take a detour, and I just remember hearing about it later. Like you said, there was 8 or so explosions going on too, and it's of course kids
Yeah,
would be on that day.
Bad decision.
Doing that, and it was interesting.
Yeah, I think at one point in time, we had over 100 law enforcement officers in town, and I remember the current chief, Brian Payne, and a couple other, the sheriff and the Sherburne County sheriff. There was a number of admin there, and they were talking about I mean, it wasn't martial law, but it was literally like having the conversations like, we are losing this. We need to get people in their houses. We need to stop travel. We need to, like, there were so many bigger conversations that were going on at the state level, and it was all based off of our small little town. But everything turned out, nobody got hurt, and I think I was trying to look back. I want to say it was probably 6 or 7 months later, after we continuously worked on this and worked on this and worked on this, we got a tip based off of some stuff that we had done earlier, and myself and a couple FBI agents were able to get the individual to admit to all of them, and so that was good. So we made an arrest eventually on that, and
I don't think I knew that.
everything turned out good, and we got to chalk one up to a learning experience,
Yeah.
because we did truly learn on an experience like that, where you don't ever think that's going to happen in your career. But,
What was the motive behind it?
the individual that was arrested, he was upset with, there were some applications in regards to either the military as well as other, like the post office and so forth, that he was upset with, that didn't get a job. And then he blamed the school for part of it. Like, I didn't get the proper education, or so there was kind of a reason behind the 3 spots. The utilities one was, we never could figure that one out. I think that just turned out to be a convenient piece of driving by. But yeah, it was based off of him being unhappy with not getting selected for a job or something to that extent.
It's always someone else's fault.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you have a taser with you? That we were going to tase
I
me?
got worried about that, because like you guys said, we're going to ask for the taser, and then I thought, well, then you're going to want a demonstration.
Yeah.
Then I have to taser somebody, and then there's paperwork.
And that's obviously going to be Mary.
Well, I mean, you guys voted earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of those things where I don't even know if she involved in the vote.
No.
No. So, of course not. So yeah, the taser is painful. I will be honest with you. We've all had to take we call it a ride. Law enforcement said take a ride. And we at our department, and I feel safe to say that at most other departments, it helps in that understanding what you're doing if you take a hit. So we all had to, in order to carry tasers, take a ride.
Question for you.
Yeah.
What was worse? Was the OC pepper spray or a taser worse?
He's got a background. I would take a taser hit over OC or mace, just because mace is the never ending. It's miserable. It's just miserable. Like,
How long does it last?
the mace piece?
Too long.
Yeah, too long. I mean, it's, you can start, you can get maced, and you can start flushing eyes, and you can start doing that, but it just seems to stick with you for hours.
Yeah.
I mean, it's miserable. I mean, so it's effective.
Yeah.
The worry, I mean, mace has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit, because, I mean, I've had one situation where I maced the individual and he laughed at me. And he just
didn't impact him?
No, it was the weirdest thing. There was some drugs on board. Yeah, so
Still.
that made it that brought in that new concern of it not affecting, because you always were told in school, oh, this works, and you never can get into that mindset that it there are those times that it might not work. And so I would rather take a taser shot than a mace shot. But yeah, taser is like the minute that trigger is not pulled, it just goes away. Like, the pain just stops. But I would say, you tell me, do you think the pain is worse on a taser or mace?
My circumstance, I think my skin is very sensitive when it came to that. So mine
To
was
tasing?
no
To the
mace. So I went to Alex Tech, and we all went through this OC and getting tased, and we went through it like our gym class the next day, and even then when I started sweating, I had to come out of my pores again. And like that night after getting OC'd, I had taken a shower, and then in a
It did
shower,
it again.
well, it went down my body. So now not only my whole body is like hurting, but there's other parts that are hurting really bad because there's OC. So I would say OC was The mace was definitely the worst because it
It's the
wouldn't go
gift that
away.
keeps giving.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just kept
Yeah.
getting. But
Yeah.
the taser though was actually
Fun.
fun. So
Interesting.
it was.
To give and take.
Well, I didn't do a whole lot of.
Right now,
Giving?
my head is right now like when we have taser research, we may have a new
Yeah.
because he just described fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it
Now you
was
know who
like-
to call.
Cause I wanted to test it to see like, okay, if I were tased, how much control can you have? And I tried getting back up, and it was like as you're getting tased, and it was
It's
interesting.
a different kind of pain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's controlling, right? I mean, it's a great tool on our tool belt. I mean, if you think about it, before taser, it was, unfortunately, it was mace and then to handgun.
Yeah.
Right, or a baton, and even you look at you look at the baton strikes. You got to be super careful with baton strikes because you can really hurt and damage. And so the nice thing about the taser, it's given us another tool that we can stop the threat. That's the biggest piece, is trying to get everything calmed down. And with somebody that's getting tasered, what people don't realize is you can come in handcuff and not join the taser, right? Not join that piece. You're not breaking the arc is kind of what it is. And so, the taser gun is got two probes, and it works between the two probes.
Oh.
So if you walk up and if you're being tasered, and I can get you in handcuffs and not be tasered by touching you,
As long as you don't go between those
as long
two.
as you
Yeah.
don't hit the arc. Yeah. So
But those two got to hit you though. If
Those two
one
gotta hit you.
doesn't,
Then it doesn't work.
it doesn't work, and then you got to go dry. So then you got to run up, and now you got to put it up against them.
Yeah.
Because now it's already been
So if
To
so
make the
the
connection.
released. Yeah.
connection doesn't hit, then you got to go dry stun.
And is it a certain amount of time, or is it how long you're holding it, or?
Our tasers work on a 5-second interval. You can, obviously with compliant, you turn it off right away. But it always will stop at that interval, and then you'd have to re-engage.
Wow.
Quick question for people that are listening and want some kind of self-defense tool to have on them, or have their wife to have, or have their kids. What would you recommend? Would you recommend like some kind of repellent like that OC or pepper spray? A stun gun that someone could get. What would, or do they take the class of
Yeah.
a permit to carry? Do you think is the best?
I think that, obviously those defense classes, the ones that I feel like are successful are the ones that actually are teaching you defensive techniques. We become super worried about the mace, or about, the one where you split the keychain and it makes that pulsing, it's like an audible. That actually is super effective, but it's more of a distraction piece. And so there's other things out there, like the well, to put it in perspective, we have the aerosol for mace is the percentage of the mace part is high for a law enforcement officer to carry. And that didn't work for me. Right. I had somebody that didn't work. You buy over the counter stuff, that percentage is much lower. And so what worries me is I don't ever want people to become dependent of just saying that that's going to work. We want people, we always talk about fight or flight, right? We want you to survive. We want those attitudes of I'm going to win this battle. I'm going to be strong. Use your feet, use your voice, scream, yell, punch, scratch. Again, and this is a female or a male. I don't care what you do, but you want to stop that threat. You want to draw attention to your surroundings, and then you want to get out of there as fast as you can. And so, a lot of it comes down to, you look at these classes that people take are all, how do I break a hold, or how do I break somebody grabbing my hand and get away from them? Those are the things that I feel are useful. So it's not just one thing. It's just that all the variables that you can learn that help you, stay safe, right? Along with, just paying attention to your surroundings, right? Like we always talk about like, oh, why would that person walk down that alley? in a movie, right? We talk about,
Yeah, yeah.
that, right? Well, like even something as simple as, like you, instead of walking down an alley, let's get ourselves to a sidewalk where there's lights or there's more traffic or, stuff like that. Or, we talk about, I always get nervous, like, I don't know what it's called, but like, you meet up to sell something, on a
Yes.
Facebook site or
Yeah.
marketplace, I don't like my wife driving by herself to go meet someone. We kind of try to always be together, or we'll, or maybe my daughter goes and she's on the phone, or, or meeting in a place that is a public place versus, hey, meet me at my house.
Right.
That just seems weird to me. Like those are, and unfortunately, it's just there's a small percentage of people that have ruined it for
Right.
the people that have those. There's not a negative thing in their body. They just, can you meet me at my house because the weather's bad? Right?
Yes.
Unfortunately, there are times that we've had incidences within the world where you hear somebody get assaulted, or you hear somebody, they brought money and they took the money and took the item they were selling. So those are all things that, being understanding of your surroundings and putting yourself in a situation that doesn't create you to create a bad situation, so to speak. So
I even tell my sons at college, never ever leave a party or whatever by yourself. Never.
Yep.
Because I think guys tend to do that more. They just, I'm heading out. All right, bye.
Yeah.
And you do hear, I feel like a lot about young males ending up in a river or,
Yeah. Or just, simply people going to the bathroom, right? At a party or a sporting event. Don't like always bring somebody with you. Don't go by yourself. There's just, those are just. I feel like those are just good safety conversations to have with your kids
Yep.
or friends. Those kind of things.
Yeah.
A lot of like fights, or since like something that would happen can always be avoided too, a lot with just like verbal confirmation of like we called it like verbal judo. Like fight your way out of it with
Right.
words before you even get into some contact with somebody. Most, if you're going to engage with it, you have that opportunity to stop engaging with the person and I don't want any of this. I want to go this way with my friends or get out of the situation. Or sometimes, like you said, can't be avoided. And
You have to
Yep.
do what you can.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't be too safe. I can't stop thinking about what happened on 169 in Elk River with
Oh,
that
yeah. Yep.
accident that happened, and that girl that invited him to warm up in her car, waiting for the police to come. And you just can never be too careful. And you think about Princeton and Zimmerman, we're a small town, and
I didn't hear that. What happened?
the 169 nightmare, they're calling
Yeah,
it.
I guess I didn't hear that.
There was an accident. Some guy, well, Todd can probably tell you more about it, but a stolen car, rear-ended a lady on 169 and hit her going like 65 miles an hour. And anyway, he went in the ditch and she pulled over, called 911. He came up to the window and he was shaking. He's like, "I'm so sorry." And she said, "Sit in my car, with me. I have the 911 on." And then she got in and she ended the call, and then it just got. She got
not good.
assaulted. She ended up getting caught in the seatbelt. She got pushed out of the car. He stole her car and she got drugged. Thank God she's living today.
Yeah, the nicest gesture you'd ever want to make, because I think that day was super cold out, and she's just trying to do something nice, and unfortunately, somebody like that takes advantage of it.
And you just never think that happens in a small town, but it does. And that, maybe we should talk here a little bit more about Princeton. What is the biggest law enforcement challenge you see in our community?
The mental health situation has been difficult. And there's a multitude of variables of why it's difficult. One, I feel like we don't have a lot of means of getting people the appropriate help outside of us responding, and my officers, and I when I say my officers, I know deputies and law enforcement in the area or all over the places in the same situation, but we have a very limited of what we can do, and sometimes when we get these calls, you obviously you have the ones where they are possibly doing it because they need help, right? Or you have family calling because of those situations, and us trying to get them to the hospital and trying to get them that proper help always is difficult because we just have limited space. And so I feel like sometimes with some of our mental health situations, they get maybe that immediate help, whether it's from us or an ambulance or a hospital, but then 2 weeks or 3 weeks down the road, we're getting that call again because something stalled out, you know, and that's what's tough for us because I think sometimes, you know, unfortunately people just think that, you know, maybe we show up and we have all the answers, and sometimes we don't have all the answers, especially with a situation like this, you know, where you know that there's some struggles going on and you maybe don't have enough of the information, you know, whether it's, you know, maybe this person, you know, we had a situation where we've never dealt with an individual, and all of a sudden over the course of like a month or two, it started becoming more frequent calls. Well, it turned out that they were not on the proper medication. So something as simple as whether they didn't have the medication or the medication needed to be adjusted, we had no idea until, you know, you start getting family involved, or you start being able to have maybe an appropriate conversation with that person, you know, building rapport. Sometimes we've never had any calls with this person. And so it takes some time for us to build some rapport to get them to open up to, hey, what's really going on? So I think, you know, and that's not, I mean, it's Princeton, right? But it's everywhere.
It
you know,
is.
it's the county. I mean, this isn't just a Princeton problem. This is a world problem. And we are spending a lot of time trying to work on solutions. And I feel like it's not just going to be one solution. I think there's a multitude of things that we have to do at different levels. I mean, right now we're trying to get our officers more training, more of how to verbal judo, how to de-escalate the situation, to be able to have those conversations. And that takes time to train officers, to get them to understand, because you got to still play that gray area of officer safety, and we want nothing but that other person to be safe, but we also want the family to be safe and people that are in the house. And so there's a lot of stuff that goes on in regards to making sure the situation, the whole event is safe, but then also trying to develop rapport. So
Just that initial walking through the door as a police officer and having that trust that
Yeah.
we're here to help,
Yeah.
and not to
right,
arrest or whatever it might
I'm
be.
going
you
to
know?
jail.
Yeah,
Right? That's what we're trying to avoid, because that's the last place we want you to go. You know, we talk about the verbal judo, we talk about the mediating the situation and trying to figure out, okay, this is what's unfortunate is that it's we're trying to come up with a solution for that time, but yet I feel like we don't have answers of a solution for the whole thing, right? And
Right.
so it's not only law enforcement, it's the hospitals, it's the state, it's everybody trying to chip in and trying to develop ways. I mean, Sherburne County, we have these different now response teams that are coming to these crisis pieces that have individuals that are trained more so than just a patrol officer. So Sherburne County has been doing a phenomenal job of having this response. And so there's a number of counties that are doing this and they're trying it. And I think that's going to be a big piece of, if this works, this, in my opinion, is going to be our next piece is, okay, we need to have these crisis response teams come to these calls, because the other thing you got to remember that these calls take a long time.
Right.
I mean, I can come in the next morning and I can see that we were out. I mean, we had a couple just in the last month or two where it was 2 hours, 2.5 hours of trying to have conversations via the phone, through the door, through the wall, through the window, because we're trying to lower everybody's stress down to be able to have a conversation. And what people don't realize is that takes time then for, you know, it never fails, right? I mean, and we had a situation where I had both officers out on this mental health crisis, and as soon as they clear, that next morning we have a burglary that took place
Right.
because we were tied up on something else, and maybe our normal patrolling didn't occur. So there's kind of this trickle down effect that comes into play where we're going to devote as much time as we possibly need to these people, but it's difficult to know what the outcome is. Right?
Definitely.
And sometimes we don't know what the outcome is. Sometimes we get them to the hospital, which is a great place for them to start, you know, maybe, you know, checking that med piece or having those conversations. And sometimes we never know what transpires
What
after
happened,
that.
right.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the mental health piece, I think any chief or any law enforcement would tell you that this is, I mean, even like hospitals will tell you that.
Schools.
Schools,
I mean,
yeah,
a huge,
it's all over the place,
Yeah.
right? You know, you have counseling places that are getting record number of calls
Yes.
because people or family members are calling and
Yep.
stuff like that. So it's really affecting a lot of people, and I mean, this sounds bad, but I don't necessarily think we have a great answer for anything right
yeah, I
now.
agree.
Other Princeton stuff, you know, I always refer to it as juvenile mischief. Our kids get bored. I think back to when I was a kid. You tend to start making maybe poor decisions when you're bored, right? And we see that, we have that. You know, it's always a little bit like clockwork, right? They get bored at school, so we start seeing that mischief around that May-ish time frame. You know, everybody's kind of, oh, we're tired of school, we need to get out, we need to have fun, and then everything kind of calms down, and then at the end of the summer, it's almost like they need to go back to school because that mischief starts up again. And so you know, we talk to the kids, you know, our SROs do a great job of just, you know, we stole it from the school, right? Respect each other, you know, tiger pride, all
Yep.
those kind of things. Because for us, it's frustrating when you have like, you know, like the crim damage or the vandalism. Like that's frustrating to us because I don't think these kids truly realize that they're still affecting everybody.
Right.
You know, if we have a kid that comes, you know, we had this 2 summers ago where they broke various signs at Mark Park, and it cost the city, you know, thousands of dollars to replace this because people were upset. Well, how come you haven't replaced it yet? Well, it's trying to find that money, and so, you know, you replace that. That money's got to come from somewhere,
Right.
And so, you know, that educational piece to those kids, and you know, like we talk to kids about, like, well, at least my conversations with kids are, you know, there's a group of 7 or 8, right? And it kind of turns into this like dysfunctional, like, oh, you know, you should do this, or oh, go do this. Like somebody within that group has to step up and stop whatever's
Yes.
being done, right? We need that leadership, right? And I think the school does a phenomenal job. Coaches do a phenomenal job of trying to educate our kids to stop that process,
Yeah.
right? Somebody be a leader, somebody step up and say, hey, this isn't a good idea. Like, this
Yeah.
is dumb. We're out of here. Everybody, let's go, right? Because there are those kids. And sometimes they feel that peer pressure of not wanting to say something. We need to applaud them when they do,
Yep.
right? And I think that's how you create a lot of good decision making and less vandalism or crim damage to property. And then too, it's getting and finding things for our kids to do. Like I feel like that sometimes, I mean, I think any city can say that, you know, but I think we need to keep working hard at trying to create those boredom times of, oh, let's go do this, let's go to, you know. So those are things that, and I don't know what the answer is to that, but it's just trying to keep kids preoccupied, right? You know, as a sports, we love our kids. You know, I love driving by Mark Park and seeing a pickup football game,
Right.
or a pickup baseball game, or a basketball game, or you know, you get kids that all of a sudden 2 hockey nets show up in a parking lot and game on, and they're playing hockey.
Yep.
That's the stuff I love, because now they're engaged, they're healthy, and they're not making poor decisions.
Right.
So yeah. So the juvenile piece, I don't know what, I think I had a couple of things. I think that 2 things that we always are working on is the communication piece with the public, right? Let's call it what it is. Social media sometimes steers us in the wrong direction. You know, we have incidences, and it becomes, I'll be honest with you, it becomes a little comical on when you start reading the social media. Oh, there was this, what? That wasn't even what it was, you know, like, so it turns into a little bit of a race, right? For me to get a press release out to try to steer people back to what it actually was.
Yes.
And then it becomes this, you know, there are departments or chiefs or media specialists for departments that, in my opinion, sometimes send out too much, because I don't want it to become like, just another press release from Frederick.
Right.
Like I want it to be genuine, and I want people to say, oh, I haven't seen I better read this.
Yeah.
And so you turn into this, a little bit of if it's too much versus not enough. And so, and then it becomes the race, right? You know, there are a lot of conversations that I try to have with people in regards to incidences that we have that, you know, you try to just have a conversation. No, that wasn't it. You got to trust me. I'll get a press release out to you. You know, like,
Yep.
we had the incident on Rum River Drive a couple weeks ago. I think it was super cold. It was super fun. Not really, but I'm just
Everything got shut down.
yeah, the road. And so, we had a press release out pretty quick just because it was a significant event. And how I based it off of the press release was because it turned into, oh, it was a bank robbery. Oh my gosh, somebody got killed.
Exactly.
I heard somebody drove a car through a house. I'm like, where do we get this stuff? And so that kind of determines if we need one or not.
Yes.
Is how sometimes dysfunctional we go. So it's that communication piece. I don't say it's a concern for our community, but I think it also is a problem. It creates a problem,
It is.
and that's every community. I mean, you talk to chiefs from Elk River, Rogers, and they're dealing with the same stuff. So I think that, and then I would love for people, my patrol officers are going to, if they hear this, they're going to roll their eyes. We constantly still get people calling in the next day to report stuff. Oh, hey, I heard a really suspicious noise in my backyard last night, but I didn't want to bother you guys. I talk about this. I mean, I could probably make a tape recording now and just keep playing it over and over again, but we want people to call us, because how do you not know that something maybe that's minor with you isn't added to the mix and major someplace else, right? My patrol guys, that's their job. That's their job, is to get there and to figure out, and it could be nothing. It could be a cat in a windowsill. We don't care. At least say, yeah, you know what, it was a cat. Don't worry about it. Thank you for calling us. Like, it's tough to play catch up, right?
Right,
It's tough
the next
that
day.
next day where you go, oh, I heard this noise, and then I heard it again, and then it sounded like somebody was breaking in, but I didn't want to bother you guys because I know you're busy. Like, I want you to call us, right? And I think that you hear that in other communities is just those good communication, good conversations. And it maybe is something where you don't need an officer to respond. Maybe it's just, can you have an officer call me?
Right.
And we can have that phone call and get your information. And maybe it turns out to be nothing. Hopefully it is. But maybe it turns out to, it adds a little piece to something we just had that now helps us try to solve something.
Right.
Or even just like, can you drive by a couple times
Yeah.
while they're out patrolling?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we put a lot of miles on the car. I think people, there's the misconception. I never see a police car. Well, you're not watching 24/7. So
Right.
like, that's not fair to say. Like, we put a lot of miles on the car, but we're at the mercy of call load. We're at the mercy of, I'm not Maple Grove, Minneapolis PD, where I have, 42 different patrol squads on, sometimes I have just one or two. And so there's a prioritizing that goes on with call load and trying to get out there and put miles on the car and be visible, right? If you have a problem or you have a concern, we need to know about it. I mean, I don't, and that's a big thing, right? I don't need someone, getting more and more upset because nothing's being done, but then they don't call us and let us
Right.
know. I mean, I need to know about it. I've had great conversations with people that have said, oh, I wish I would have called you a week ago. That makes sense. Well, that's what I'm here for. And that's part of my job.
Yeah.
Right. I don't get a chance to patrol hardly anymore because I feel like, I'm on the phone or going to a meeting or whatever, and that's the job of that I have, and I love that part of the job, and I love having conversations with people, and we the coffee corner, right, or Caribou. There's well, do I like my coffee? Sure, I do. I got to have my coffee in the morning, but the other positive of that is that I can go there and probably spend an hour there, hour and a half there, because people just want to have conversations about
Yep.
whether it's something important or not important. So I feel like, the sergeant and myself, that's what we're there for. Is we're there to listen to people, and sometimes we get wonderful ideas from those conversations. Sometimes we get those not wonderful ideas that, okay, note to self, we're not going to do that.
Right.
But those are all things that make our department better. I mean, even a patrol officer that gets out of their car and we had a situation. Maybe I told to tell you about the shoveling. I think I did. Right.
Yeah.
Drew.
Yep.
Right. I have my brand new officer who goes to a medical, and they needed to transport the subject, and the driveway wasn't shoveled. It was full of snow, and he grabs the shovel and he starts hoofing the driveway so we can get the ambulance up there. And like, that's stuff that, I mean, we want that to occur. You know, it's that community oriented policing. We talk about that, and you know, that's been pounded into our heads as officers dating back 20 years. And sometimes it can't be done, right? You know, sometimes we're busy and we, you know, I'm sorry, we can't shovel your driveway, but let me find a way to get that done. you know?
Right.
I mean, there's been a number of times where you get to a call and it's maybe an older aged female or male that can't get out of their house. Well, like, here's the great thing is that we're a small enough community where we can make a phone call and go, hey, can you bring the plow blade over here and
Right.
back drag the driveway? Like, that's stuff that happens here. And
Yep.
that's what's great about this town is that we're not this big metro area town. Yeah, we're getting busier, right? More people are moving here, which is awesome. We want that to happen, but we still have that small town effect where you can call somebody and go, hey, you got a sec to drop by and back drag this driveway because of snow.
Right.
And they don't ask why. They don't, oh, yeah, I'll be there in 2 minutes.
And you can keep an eye on your kids because everybody's watching them.
And everybody's watching. Yeah.
And maybe you just answered this question. This was the last question we had for you is what do you enjoy most about serving this community?
I love like stuff like this. Like, I mean, I don't, you know, like, you know, you listen to maybe other, admin at bigger departments, bigger cities, and they don't get a chance to get out, right? For me, I love the fact that I get brought to different meetings and get to hear different and meet different people, but I can walk into the coffee shop or walk into Coburn's or Walmart or whatever, and you can always have a conversation with somebody. And they're always great conversations. The other big thing for me is that, I come from Bloomington, a metro city, right? And what I love about it is, you know, you're always having those wonderful conversations with your neighbors about, oh, hey, we're going on vacation. Can you watch the house? To just people wanting to help. I mean, we have so many people that won't hesitate to drop what they're doing and go help somebody. Like, and you can, and there's never a why, or there's never, well, how much am I gonna get for it?
Yep.
Like, I've never heard that. I've never heard, somebody say, well, I'm not gonna do it unless you pay me. Like, that's never come across in front of me, you know? You talk about our kids, and, you know, when I was coaching the high school team, we get the kids out and we'd do some raking and we'd shovel and you get the kids, oh, I gotta go do this again, right? But like, at the end of the day, they felt good about themselves
Yeah.
because they were able to do something or give back to their community, you know. It always helped, right? When she would come out with cookies.
Right.
Thank you for raking my yard,
Right.
you know, because the kids then would eat up the cookies. So just, yeah, it's this is a great town. I mean, when I moved here to take this job as just a police officer, I was single, didn't really know anything about it, and I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad that I have a middle school and a high school kid, and they do well, and they have great friends, and they're great parents, and it's just everything about it is just fun. I think there's a lot of my friends that are metro people, let's call it that, I think would love to come up here. We see a lot of people coming up here. I get phone calls all the time from police officers saying, "Hey, I work here, but we're moving here, and we want 3 or 4 acres, and we want some woods, and we want that small town." So there's so many things. I mean, I could spend hours talking about what's great about this town.
Well, on behalf of Jim Baxter, I feel like we have to ask a traditional question.
Okay.
Can I hold your gun?
Well, that was why I didn't carry a gun here today, because I knew if Baxter was involved, if Baxter's involved, we got problems.
Yeah.
So no,
I said as soon as you got out of his truck, I'm like, oh, he's not in his uniform. I'm not going to be able to hold his gun. Or
that's
unfortunately for me, not get tased.
as I've explained to Baxter many of times. That's a lot of paperwork,
Right.
and I'd have to trust Baxter first. to
That's
be able to do
right.
it. Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
for Baxter.
For Baxter,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate you being here today and taking the time out. I know you're very busy.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. This was awesome. I mean, this is a great thing to do. So we're super excited that you're doing this.
Yeah.
Well, I think we learned a lot from you too. And coming from somebody who just had to retake their permit test, I still learned a lot today.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Backstory.
The written one. Yeah, I can talk about it now, but do not, public service announcement, do not let your driver's license expire. Don't do it.
I've heard rumors that it's as an experienced driver, if you have to go back and retake, there's a little bit of studying that needs to occur.
Yes.
That's why when that ambulance on 94, I was mad at myself because I was thinking, I should know this. I just went through the test.
Well,
But-
and I have a daughter now who's driving with one of us, and it's been it's now somehow become my job to, not mom's. I'm with her and we're driving. She's doing a great job, and but it's a good good educational piece for me, because like,
is.
when she took the test, I was like, what?
I know. It's
better-
much
I better pay
different than
attention.
what we took.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it is.
It's much more difficult.
Yeah.
There's roundabouts now. Mm-hmm. And there's
Yeah.
lots of questions about roundabouts.
And
Yep.
sometimes in roundabouts, we just keep driving in circles. And I say that, but that's unfortunately it's happened. You know, we get the 911 call of somebody saying I can't get out of the roundabout, and so we have to go there.
Just keep circling and you'll be fine. We'll be there in a minute.
Exactly. That's hilarious.
Cool.
Well, thank you for joining us for the Princeton podcast. Thank you, Todd, for coming down here and talking with us. Big thank you to our sponsor, Princeton Public Schools. And until next time, this is Zach, Mary, and Kim signing off.
Podcast produced by Kitzman Creations, music by Charles Moe. Be sure to subscribe to the Princeton Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also, to view our awkward moments, check us out on our YouTube channel and visit us at www.thisisprincetonmn.co.